Rajiv Satyal.
Harsha Satyal.
Hi, I'm Richa Shukla.
I'm Sean Valentino.
I learned it in sex ed class in 5th grade, and we were taught by our PE teachers. So they had this perspective of a grown-up's view of how to teach what you do during sex, you know, how to appropriately choose your partners and how to say no, and when it's for a girl to kind of just really evaluate what she should really be doing at that point. And as a 5th grader, everything's just flowing over your head and you're looking at the parts of the body and you didn't really absorb anything. So I think it takes a really long time after you learn about it in sex ed that what does it really mean to be in a consensual relationship and to give consent while you're dating. So you have to learn it on the fly, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Just going on from there, yeah, I think I've really learned it during my dating life and being with a lot of wild, crazy girls. Where, I mean, even the wildest girls, you kind of realize that, you know, maybe they might not always be into you, or there might be a situation where they don't feel comfortable. So I think you really learn it. I mean, you learn it obviously when you're young, but you really learn it in practice when you're dating. And just dating a lot of different girls, you always have to know the important thing is no means no. Mm-hmm. Or just feel it out, even if they don't say it. You can always have an instinct and realize this isn't going there, just don't force it.
I agree with that. I think that people, even when they get really drunk, or I can't speak to drugs so much, but you still kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I really kind of don't feel there's such a thing as I would just so smash, and I don't know, and that, maybe you don't remember the next day, you blacked out or whatever, but I think in that moment, you're still you, and you lose your inhibitions and all those things happen. But as far as consent specifically, I mean, it played into my own insecurity. I just assumed nobody wanted me. So my default was she's not into it. And so if she gave any kind of indication that she wasn't, I was going, okay, all right, that's all I needed. I knew you didn't want me anyway. And so I don't think I ever really learned about consent until it became news. I mean, it was just all over the news. I mean, you just kept hearing about it. We keep hearing about it, about all of the things, the Duke lacrosse team and now the Stanford guy, and these stories keep playing out. Doesn't seem like there's been a ton of progress, which is kind of sad to say. And so I think you take that and you apply that to your own life, and you kind of go, gosh, I need to be careful as well. And it does scare you from sort of a legal point of view as well, but hopefully you take that and you kind of look at the morality of it and the ethics of it and what you personally believe. And I agree with Sean that you do kind of know what's happening and in that moment. So I think that you always have to be aware of consent. So I don't know if I actually officially learned it at any point in time, but it's something that if you're, you know, a human being and you're trying to relate to other human beings, it's something that you pick up over time.
Yeah. Growing up in an Indian American household, consent and sex or anything related to that was never talked about and is still never talked about. So I didn't really even know what sex was until probably, I didn't know what it was until I took sex ed. I think it was 7th grade for me. Before that, I just thought it was like what I saw in a Hollywood movie of 2 naked people rolling around in bed. I didn't know what actually happened under the sheets. So when I found out, it kind of blew my mind and scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I was actually pretty traumatized for a while. So yeah, for me, I think that my beliefs about consent and sex really are still changing to this day. It's something that I feel like is a lifelong process of figuring out. But I mean, for me, it was really just through my experiences and getting older.
I was in a group of residents that it was just in 2004. It was so recent. And I just couldn't believe it that a professor came up to me and said, instead of saying, hi, hello, you know, my name is so-and-so, he's just like, you look so exotic. And it just took me aback of going, wow, we're going here. He wouldn't do this with any other race or ethnicity, and I just kind of had to take a deep breath and be like, yes, I am exotic. I didn't know what else to say.
It's a go-to word, I know, seriously.
So I think a lot of people see brown skin and, you know, wide eyes and black hair, and they just automatically assume this ethnicity and you're wild and exotic. And
I really am, I'm an extrovert, but I do have some introvertish appeals to myself. So if that's all you're thinking about me, you'll never really get to know the true inside of what's going on inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody?
Anyone else? Yeah. Let's see, the assumption, I mean, people assume I'm going to be funny, and I am. I mean, I'm a comedian, comic, so people assume that, and I generally try to have fun on, dates back in the day. But ethnically wise, or ethnicity wise, I guess I don't really have I didn't really see myself as Indian in Ohio where I grew up, except in the context of dating. And that's when I was really, really aware of it. And so I think there was that idea, even growing up throughout school. I did a whole one-person show about it, about how the standard of beauty was white, right? And that's kind of what you consider to be pretty or beautiful or whatever else. I mean, from the very beginning of watching MTV videos or watching, films or whatever else. I didn't really watch Bollywood films. I mean, I watched a lot of Hollywood stuff and whatever. So to me, that was what was beautiful. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed, that was the ideal, and then everything else was sort of second to that. That wasn't my opinion. That was just how I was socialized. So I think it was seeing the beauty in my own race over time and all that kind of stuff. Or Muhammad Ali, rest in peace. They were asking me, "What's the one thing you want people to remember?" How pretty I was, right? And that was kind of a big thing. He said how pretty I was, and he was joking, but he wasn't. And he gave African Americans and black people around the world, "Hey, you're pretty. We're pretty. This is a thing." And, I don't know that I had exposure to that with the Indian equivalent because I didn't watch Bollywood and all that. And there's kind of a long-running, I don't know if it's a funny joke, but a joke that a lot of Indians, especially in America, are emasculated in entertainment. And Asians, same thing. You don't really see the sexual side of Indians. And then it was Monrock, a friend of mine, my comic friend, her friend, who is blonde hair and blue-eyed, and Monrock kind of looks up to her in terms of this beauty kind of thing, and she goes, Rajiv, he's pretty sexual. And it wasn't sexy, it was sexual. And I kind of go, what does that mean? She goes, that's kind of a higher level. She goes, I could see you as a... And I was completely unsolicited. And I went, whoa, all right. And it blew Monrock's mind, because she was always clowning me for, oh, you're just this kind of just guy, whatever. We can't see you that way. And I think when her idol, kind of went... completely, wasn't even asked, and she volunteered this information, it kind of made me feel all right. But it was weird that it really kind of still took that. It took a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman to sort of validate that, which I guess is its own kind of issue. But I, still appreciated it. It was still cool to hear that, wow, you're sexual. I thought, wow, that's all right, yeah, okay, cool. I don't think sexual people are supposed to do this. I think you're supposed to do something cooler, but that's what I did.
Yeah, I think for me too, I can totally relate to that. Like, the only time I really felt my ethnicity growing up was in the context of dating. I feel like throughout all of high school, I always felt like the ugly duckling because there weren't that many good-looking Indian people in my community. So I always felt my ethnicity in that context. And just like you were saying, like I kind of grew up seeing and being conditioned to think that the beautiful girls were the blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls, and I would try to dress like them. I'd go to Abercrombie and Fitch and try to look like them as much as I could, but I was still never considered in their league. So for me, that actually gave me a lot of insecurities growing up, and it was only after probably I got out of high school and went to college that I started to really come into my own skin and realize that beauty is a lot deeper than that, and it has nothing to do with your ethnicity. And that being said, I'm also different from you in the sense that I grew up watching a lot of Bollywood movies.
Yeah, right.
So for me, I was conditioned to think that I can only be with a brown person because I have to have that Bollywood love story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess for me, I've never really been defined by my race, especially when it comes to dating. I mean, most of the girls I've dated have been like these blonde-haired, blue-eyed Barbie doll types. So I've never really been defined as, oh, this is an Indian guy. And I think more people have been enamored by my lifestyle. And this guy travels the world. He's very mysterious. So if anything, it's been used as an advantage for me, just being the cool, exotic, Aladdin-like character, which it's worked for me pretty well. But I think my goal, I mean, I go to India every year too, so I very much identify as an Indian person. But at the same time, I mostly see myself as a citizen of the world. And I think that comes from traveling and interacting with people from all over the world. I've been to about 70 countries and dated girls from all over the world. So I think that should be really everyone's goal, because we really are very much a multicultural society. And I think one of my goals and what I've done is being an author and talking about it on talk shows with some Dr. Phil and Tyra Banks is just not define myself by my ethnicity and really break the stereotype, even if I'm not saying like, yeah, Indian guys, you should go out there and date all different types of people, but subconsciously people think of Indian guys as kind of like dweeby, like he was saying, kind of this dweeby, dorky type guy, and I think I've never let that stereotype limit me. And I think one of my goals is to have Indian people break out of their shell and really exude that confidence and that cool factor, because that's not what Indian people are really known for. And I think if you look at Bollywood movies these days, and like her, I watch a lot of Bollywood movies these days, and the people there are so much cooler than anyone you'll ever see. Like the women are much more beautiful, the guys are like these alpha male, sexy, over-the-top, larger-than-life characters. You don't even see that in Hollywood anymore. So I think people should really realize that we're in a stage where you can be anything you want. The president of the United States is black. I mean, you have no excuses. So even in your dating life, don't accept any limitations. Date who you want. No, don't be afraid or insecure, or be afraid to be who you are, because you'll be surprised if you just break out of a shell and be confident. That I always think in my mind I can get any girl I want, and I think that's the mentality you need to start with, men and women.